the first of hopefully many type of summits that we'll do. The purpose of what we're doing here today really comes out of a call and commitment to community development. Many of you who are involved know that there's been kind of this resurgence going on here recently about the importance of community and taking ownership of that, of our communities in ways that are important, and not just to participate in electing people and to do something for us, but ways in which we can commit to developing our own communities and having a sense of our own agenda for our development and for our communities. And so the purpose of this is an opportunity to add to that energy that's going on here in Akron. So let's start off with, first, again, welcome you to the summit and thank you for coming. Thank you for your willingness to engage in a deliberative process towards growth and development of our community, and to the importance of recognizing the importance of recommitting to the principles that are important to our common community. This summit, a weekend of events, have been put together by a group of folks who organized the committee. Quincy Brown, Dorita Davis, myself, Raymond Green, Quad Hill, Darren Johnson, Lena Johnson, Heather Renee, Mike Ripley, Jennifer Tolles, and Dorita Davis as well. We have worked over the summer to organize and pull some things together for us to contemplate and deliberate on this process of developing our communities. And so I just want to give recognition to those. And those folks who, also organizations that has helped us with either support and or technical assistance. Alchemy, the city of Akron has provided some help with some different ways, and just the thoughts and prayers of the Wound, who has served as serves as an incubator really to help us along, and so those particular organizations specifically. Also want to thank our speaker for today. Well, let me also back up, because oftentimes we have these kinds of events and it is speaker driven. You come out to listen to a speaker say a few things, inspire us, and then they move on. While we have, I believe, identified some profound and great scholars and speakers to share some things with us, this effort is a workshop. This is here to do work. Our speakers are here to set the tone for us, and then we go into deliberation, we go in to do some work, and hopefully we'll be able to develop some resources that not only so we can share with the community that will help set the agenda, help set the strategies for how do we move forward. So that, just to give you a quick, in terms of the purpose of what we're here to do. Just some, I guess it's those housekeeping rules, if you will. They have a daycare that's going on over here, so they need for us to not be in these halls for sure, which really shouldn't be an issue for us at this point. And at one point, there will be some young folks coming through to get to the kitchen while we're deliberating. And if anybody needs to use the restrooms, they will be the ones out in the hall here, just for some housekeeping stuff, rules. In terms of our process, we'll touch on this a little bit already. The process is that we'll have a speaker who's going to share some great insight with us and talk about Dr. Howard Stevenson here in a moment, a little bit of his background. But he sets the tone. And then we're going to go into deliberation about some of these recommendations. If you have our program, you know that these recommendations came out of a time period in which of the Rooster riots. And I actually talked to Dr. Stevenson last night. We had talked about the Rooster riots, and personally it was before my time, but I knew something about it, listening to people in the area talk about it. But to really put that into context, we was here last night doing some setup, and one of the sisters said, my uncle was a part of that. And that picture where the man is handcuffed and the little boy hands over his face, they had just been maced. And that's here, just right down the road here. That's Akron. And when they talk about what had happened, they talk about the National Guard coming and occupying that area. And so this is a part of that. These recommendations come out of that. And when you read these recommendations, they're great recommendations. The commission report was phenomenal. Unfortunately, though, that when you read these recommendations, they're still very apropos. They're still very relevant today. The stuff that's going on with Akron Public Schools, the Akron University of Akron, the things, the tensions between the police and neighborhoods, all are addressed in this document, and all seem still very relevant today. And so our intent is to come away with a document of actionable strategies towards actionable strategies that we can hold ourselves accountable, hold our community accountable, hold our leaders accountable. So that's the tone, that's the purpose of our day. Remember the original one of us, the original two of us, that who started humanity, that was created and laid the foundations for just being human, to be a human being, the dignity that comes and the uniqueness that is being human. We want to remember that and those who were those first of us, and to them we say, we remember those who had that inkling to move out of Africa and to establish civilizations all around the world, who laid down the foundations for community and neighborhood. While one first started with family, then families became neighborhoods and cities and civilizations, and they laid down the groundwork for all of us to come to understand and to be enlightened by their greatness and their history. And everything that we do even today is laid upon this idea of civilization and community. And those folks who first left to establish that around the world, we want to remember that kind of spirit and remember that kind of, that courageousness. And to them we say, I say. We remember the folks who came to West Africa, that many of us have direct connection to, who started civilizations and kingdoms that were renowned and drew attention from people from around the world. They wondered, how did they do these universities? How did they establish these places? One such king would go and the whole economic system would drop because he was just passing out gold. And even today was considered to be the richest man to ever to walk this earth, but he was so generous with what he was doing. But that's the stock that we come from. We need to remember that. We need to understand that is our legacy, and that comes from us and where we are connected to. So let us remember that spirit and those who laid those foundations, those kingdoms in Africa that we are still learning and drawing energy from. To them we say, let us remember those who were lost in a middle passage. That Ma'afa, that horrible event. Some died unwillingly, some chose that, you know what, I'm not crossing this great river. I don't care what's going on. Somehow or another, we need to mourn and understand and recognize the loss of that potential, the loss of that humanity, that great Ma'afa, that great awful event. Those who chose or otherwise died in that middle passage, all that great potential loss. Let's remember them as we go and do what we do today. That we say. But also let us remember those who did not die, those who could not be killed, those who had a spirit within them that says, I will endure. Some out of a sense of determination, some just being stubborn. Just, I ain't gonna die. You can't take this from me. And we need to remember that because ultimately, we are the people that they could not kill. We come from those. Many of us have direct connection to those who made that trip and made that journey and endured and survived a great trauma, a great hurt, and yet still maintained their humanity, and yet brought culture, brought things that we can learn from and stand on. And to them we say, I share. Now, we are been honored. We've been, I would say, blessed in good favor. This brother has agreed to come and share some thoughts with us from Philadelphia. I gotta say, a lot of times, folks get some letters behind their name and some prestige. They don't always answer the phone, and they don't always, they're too busy and they want to make sure that, special accommodations and things that exist, right? And it's, I've known Howard, I moved to Philadelphia in 2006. And when I got there, a couple of folks quickly were like, this is the brother you need to meet. And he was, the chair of the Applied Psychology and Human Development Division of the Graduate School of Education at the prestigious University of Pennsylvania, one of the Ivy League schools. And he was just as, hey, bro, how you doing? Just a plain good brother.
Good morning. I appreciate that introduction. Curtis and I, we also taught a course at Penn on psychoeducation interactions with black males, and had a wonderful time, especially in the Ivy League institution, being able to talk about the cultural stuff, about rites of passage, about what's healing for our community. And so I'm really glad to be here. And just to give you, I'm going to share a story, but part of our workshop was also asking you to share some things as well. I grew up in an AME church that's probably no bigger than a corner of that wall over there. And so one of the things the people I grew up with would say, where two or three are gathered, that's enough for God to do the work. And so this is a crowd. What you all have here for us, for me, is a crowd. We're not used to many people where I grew up. Because people where I grew up don't really care anything about the degrees I had. They don't care anything about Penn. They don't understand Ivy League. What they care about is when I go home, do I remember them? Do I remember how they raised us? My brother and sister and I. I'm the oldest of three. Even now, if I go back, some people will still say to me, when are you going to graduate? When are you going to get out of school? You need some help? They don't understand the chair, they don't understand the professor, they don't understand none of that. So Some of us have people, you don't have to explain, you can't explain your job. You just move on. And these are folks who help raise us, they help educate us. And part of my story is being in a family, a multicultural family. Both my parents were African American. My father grew up in Delaware. I'm from Delaware. Anybody heard of Delaware? All right. Anybody ever been to Delaware? Oh, weird. Did you just keep driving through Delaware and you just kept on going? You didn't stop in Delaware. That's right. Most people, I've never met a lot of people from Delaware because my brother and I joke that most people who were born in Delaware stay in Delaware, and it's that kind of state. And there are two Delawares. Northern Delaware and Southern Delaware. And Southern Delaware looks to Northern Delawareans because it's lower. They call it lower Delaware. So people in Lower Delaware have a particular way of thinking about Northerners. When we won the basketball championship in my high school year, you would have thought we had won the Civil War by the way people came out to say, you beat those Northern Delawareans. And Delaware isn't that big a state, but there are two different kinds of cultures. And we grew up in the southern part, much more like Mississippi. The racial stuff in southern Delaware is historic. Some of the Brown versus Board of Education is a case coming out of southern Delaware that supported that work because of the racial hostilities in the neighborhood. And my parents, being from different places, my father from southern Delaware, very country rural. My mother was from North Philly. And so I don't know if you know North Philly, but North Philly is as different from southern Delaware as east is from west. And my parents had different styles about how they problem solved. In southern Delaware, people were different in how they dealt with racial stuff. Once I went back home for my father about 15 years ago, got some stuff, he wanted me to go to the store and get some food. And in the process, I walked by the praying lady from my church growing up. But I was busy trying to get the stuff. And before I got home, she called my father up, who's still alive, and said, Javi, there's something wrong with your boy. He walked by me and he did not speak. And by the time I got home, my father said, what did you do? I said, Dad, I got your food or everything. He said, you walked by Ms. Warrington and you didn't speak to her. I said, oh, so I had to call Ms. Warrington and I had to say to her, I'm so sorry, Ms. Warrington, you're absolutely right. There is something wrong with me. I was rushing and I forgot, and I had to listen to her talk about her life, her prayer life. And I know as many of you know church people pray, but Ms. Warrington was the person. We have people in our church who really know how to pray, right? They know how to call on God a certain way, and God comes quicker for them. Thunder happens when they speak. This was Mrs. Warrington. She was quiet in public, which is part of the reason I didn't see her, but when she kneels down and prays, thunder and lightning happens. That's who she was. So I couldn't forget her. The culture of people I grew up with was like that. When they were in the presence of whites, they were physically differential. They wouldn't look in the eye. Very southern culture. Now, my mother is from North Philly. My father from Southern Delaware. My father's view, if we came into racial conflict, we were supposed to pray for people with the idea that God would get our neighbor in the end. We weren't sure when the end was going to be, but it wasn't our job to deal with people who didn't respect us or reject us. My mother in North Philly, very different, more Malcolm X-like. She was used to being in neighborhoods, of segregated neighborhoods where people were clashing all the time. You didn't look people in the eye. I had to speak to people in Southern Delaware. When I get to Philly, I start speaking to people. My cousin would slap me upside the head and say, stop talking sometimes. Don't look at people. Her way was dealing in your face, more direct. She was used to being chased out of segregated neighborhoods. She was used to chasing people out of her neighborhood that didn't belong. The way in which they both approached racial conflict was very different. When my mother came to Southern Delaware, it was like she came to a foreign country. And part of this is related to a conversation around trauma and healing and stress. As children, my brother and I'm the oldest of three. My brother is a famous lawyer. If you ever get a chance to read a book called Just Mercy, he has one of the highest applauded TED Talks ever. if you ever get a chance. My sister, Christy, is a musician. The three of us, watching our mother try to deal with people in Southern Delaware was very stressful. Because the way my mother's attitude was, from North Philly, was very different than the black people in Southern Delaware, the migrant people in Southern Delaware, the native people in Southern Delaware, the Hispanic, Latino community. She was not deferential. When she wanted to go somewhere, she walked. She didn't really care what you thought about her. And when she did it, she pissed people off. Because she wasn't from around there. She pissed the black people off, she pissed the migrant people off. Because her style was challenging. You ever been in a place where people look at you, they look at your kids because they don't belong, if you don't belong there? That's what we had to do. We were going to the supermarket. Before we get in the supermarket, she said, don't ask for nothing. Don't touch nothing. And then she'd walk away and she'd come back. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't care if all the other kids are climbing the walls. They're not my child. You understand what I'm saying to you? My brother and sister and I learned 3-part harmony about how we say yes, ma'am. She was a musician as well. She was a piano player. So we had to respond to that because it was a stressful experience, not only for us, but for her. We didn't understand how stressful it was for her. But she knew her way didn't fit very well in the context. So we get into the supermarket. And we see the stares, we see the looks, the rolling of the eyes, and we start to get stressed. And as children, we try to do what all children do when they're worried about their family, is they distract from the moment. So we try to count up all the food up in the cart, because we thought maybe if our mom saw us using our math skills, she wouldn't see the looks. We could get our food, go home, and have a good day. Because that's all we wanted. We weren't concerned about the racial politics of the day. We just wanted to get our food, go home, and eat. Some days that worked. She loved listening to us calculate. She didn't see the looks. We had a good day, go home. Some days that worked, some days that did not work. On days that did not work, we did what our father taught us to do, which was to pray. We said, Lord, please don't let nothing happen in the supermarket. Some days that worked, some days that didn't work. And in our child minds, we thought, well, maybe God was busy with some other kids in another supermarket in another town. That's the way children think sometimes. God could just be busy. On days that nothing worked, we could feel the tension so intensely you could cut it with a knife. And the people in that place would do what I write about in a book called Racial Tourette's. They could not hold back their hostility. They had to do something or say something to put my mother in her place. And when we get up to the conveyor belt, it just crescendo. The worst thing that someone could do in that moment to put my mother in place was to throw our food into the bag. And once that happened, it was on. She began to tell them who they were, who their family was, where'd you go, how fast you get there. Anybody here been cursed out? What is it about being cursed out that people don't like? Anybody tell me?
They're telling the truth.
They may be telling the truth.
Yeah, they right.
Well, part of it is you have no defense. You feel really small when you're done in this moment. It takes my mother about 30 seconds. The person be on the floor, writhing in pain. That's how good she was. Now, that's the culture I grew up in. The point of my story, though, is both my parents were Christian. The difference is my father prayed before the conflict, my mother prayed after. Now, the work that I'm doing currently for 30 years has been in this area called racial socialization. Does it matter that your parents talk to you about how to navigate any conflict in the world, but racial conflict? Does it matter that your church does it? Does it matter in your community? Does it matter in your elders? Does it matter at the television? Socializes us about how we can approach a world that rejects us because of our differences, which can be stressful and over time can relate to trauma. And part of the argument is, and what we've learned through research is that it so happens that when families do talk to their kids about, here's what I want you to do when, I don't want you to internalize how the other world sees you. That the stuff they're dropping on you is about their issues, not yours. Children feel better. Children only feel better if they stop wasting brain energy worrying about what's wrong with them, and they can focus on learning. They can focus on calculation. They can focus on play. They can focus on healing in ways that if they don't have some feedback about why am I being thought of as if I don't exist, as if I'm not human, as if I'm a child, I'm really a man, if I'm really not allowed to have childhood feelings, instead of it being something that's wrong with me, I can understand the world does not understand. And so the reason we should talk about race, we talk about this as a racial literacy, and how stressful it is to even begin a conversation about this with our children, and how do we even talk about our own pain, is the work I've been interested in for 30 years, and what I'm hoping to do for the next 30, I'm so lucky to have it. But part of it is based in this proverb that the lion's story will never be known as long as the hunter is the one to tell us. That we're often living in the narratives of other people's stories. We're living in other people's narratives about us. And we haven't always defined that. And I know many of you are doing that work now. But part of the way we're interested in doing it is how do we help young people navigate stress in moments, not necessarily lifetimes. If you look at the research right now on trauma and healing and stress, it's that racial stress is uniquely different than other kinds of stressors. So when we're watching our mother in the store, we're worried that something's going to happen to her because we know her way. We know how she clashes with the world. We know the world is unforgiving. Now, funny, it so happens that the reason she told us the story, don't touch nothing, don't ask for nothing, really wasn't because she was worried about us misbehaving. She was worried about how the world would misperceive us just being who we were. Right? Anybody ever give that talk to your kids? Anybody ever get that talk when you was a kid? Anybody do it this morning? Why do people give that talk? Right? We know it's about preparing our children for a world. Yeah, sometimes it's around this, but a lot of times it's like, let me teach you about a world that doesn't appreciate you. In NIH, the work that we're doing now, we know that a lot of researchers have never figured out that parents parent according to the danger they worry about their children facing. And not everybody's child is not going to come home from public services. Is not going to be treated fairly just walking down the street. Not everybody has to worry about that. So we're interested in how do we help young people navigate moments of minutes, not necessarily hours. How do you see yourself, be yourself in these moments? And we've been spending time with police, we've been spending time with young people in projects, 3 projects. And I'm going to ask you to do one thing before we move on. One called the Play Project. We've been using basketball, martial arts to deal with boys' anger, now girls' anger and emotions. So that what happens when you feel overwhelmed in a moment? Can we help you navigate within a minute how to reduce your stress from a 10 to a 9, or 9 to an 8? So you can think better, so you can speak your voice. You need that in the classrooms to be able to speak your voice. We've learned a lot about how young people can respond very quickly. We've also been using black barbershops in the city of Philadelphia. We've trained African-American barbers to provide counseling to African-American men between the age of 18 and 24. Highly traumatized groups that you know, our brothers and our fathers in these scenarios. But the barbers are able to deliver both health counseling around safe sex risk reduction, as well as violence retaliation risk reduction, while they're cutting their hair. All of the intervention is done during the haircut appointment. Many of us know brothers go to the barber sometimes and never get a haircut and stay all day. They tell us it's the safest place they can go. It's one of the few places they can go where 95% of the time they walk away feeling good about themselves. Not only looking good, but feeling good. And will drop knowledge and information they would never share sometimes with a partner and even with a pastor. So those are examples of the ways that we try to do it. But storytelling is a key aspect. Now if I were to ask you right now, do you remember messages you heard about growing up, about race and how to navigate stress? or racial distress and racial trauma while you grow up from your parents. And if you do so, I'd like you to pick a partner right next to you and just tell that story for at least just a minute. And then I'm going to ask you to switch, and then your partner will tell his or her story. And then I'm going to ask you a few questions to give you an idea of how we try to address stress and trauma for young people in short periods of time. So a story about messages you heard about how to navigate racial stress while you're growing up, or racial events. Ready? Just pick one partner. Go for it.
Well, you want
Calculate means, what are you feeling? I'm going to ask you, like, what am I feeling right now? You guys, what are you feeling right now? And calculate on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like incredibly intense, 1 being not intense at all. What number would you give that feeling? Locate is where in your body do you feel it? And the more specific, the better. Young people can say, I feel it in my stomach, it's like a bunch of butterflies. And they just move around, and all of a sudden they float up here into my throat, and I can't talk anymore. Some kids can be incredibly detailed. The reason that's important is you can't relax pieces, parts of your body if you don't know what's happened to it. Part of trauma is, one, I don't know what I'm feeling, and then I don't know how intense it is. I thought I was at a 3, and my sister told me that you look like you were at a 9. You ever anybody come up to you, and you feel like you're having a good day, and they say, what's the matter? You all right? Or, what you mad about? Whatever, because your face don't match your heart, body, and soul. Knowing exactly what you're feeling, intensity, is part of healing. Knowing where in your body is actually happening is another part. Communicate is the third piece, is self-talk. Do I remember what I'm saying to myself while I'm in the moment of the thing that's happening? Some people have some negative self-talk. You idiot. What's wrong with you? How could you do that? And other people are like, go boy, I hear you. Don't let nobody talk to you like that. You're a prince. Whatever, you know. Self-talk matters. And some people don't even know their self-talk. It might take a while, but part of healing is, how do I learn my feelings, how intense they are, where they hit me in my body? Brothers on the street will tell us oftentimes they've used these strategies because they didn't realize it. You know, sometimes they can't remember what happened. Like, something happened, I was cool, and then something else happened, and it got real. But they couldn't figure out what happened between then and that. And so part of our job is to understand the stuff that's happening in your body. And we do a lot of filming of boys in basketball. We realize we can see way before conflict happens, 5-10 minutes, because it's building. And kids are doing stuff. They're pacing in a certain way. They got looks. And we want the adults in those places to see them. So calculate, locate, communicate, and also breathe and exhale. The breathing helps bring oxygen back to your brain, and exhaling allows you to get it out. Your brain goes on lockdown when you're stressed. We're all similar now. You're about ready to fight, you go in fight, flight, fright mode. You're either paralyzed, you're either running away, or you're ready for battle. And those are stress reactions that over time can build and affects us physically as much as it affects us emotionally. So the question I want to ask you is, before I ask you maybe what you talked about, is when you were talking to your partner right now, or listening, it's less than 2 minutes, did you notice anything about yourself while you were talking or listening to your partner? And just, you can say it.
Increased heart rate.
Increased heart rate. Excellent.
I leaned in.
You leaned in. You noticed you leaned in. Very good.
My chest tightened.
Your chest tightened. Okay.
I felt warm.
You started feeling warm. All right. Where at? In your face. Okay. Cool.
I think my blood pressure.
You think your blood pressure goes? How did you, what about your body give you the understanding that your blood pressure might have rose?
I just felt somewhat flush.
In your face? Okay, cool.
I think I had a little bit of self-talk going on, so as I was explaining, those instances, or I felt lack of instances where I got this instruction from my brother, so there's a little bit of, oh man, this is really not enough. I had some self-talk going on.
It's not enough, you're saying?
Not enough. What I got, wasn't specific enough.
Okay.
couldn't really-
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So you were having a conversation while you were doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so thank you for that. We call this courageous noticing, right? The ability to actually see yourself, being yourself in the most stressful moments, in many respects, I think is missing as a stressful healing process. That is, the more you know about yourself, the better you can protect yourself. And you can also you can actually judge danger better. When your brain goes on lockdown, you lose peripheral vision and hearing, which means you're missing out key information that allow you to make a better judgment. So some of your body's preparing for war, but you may misunderstand what danger is if you don't have all your faculties, and breathing helps bring that back. So, for anybody who's willing to share a story, could you share a story about a message you heard while going? And I think I'm going to try to make this relevant for the rest of your time today, because what you're going to talk about are not just life historical events, they're emotional events. And we have to figure out a way to manage our emotions as we're talking about healing our community, right? It takes a village to raise a child, but what does it take to raise a village of people who are committed to make some changes? That's the work, right? That's really the work. And I think it's an emotional work as much as it's a community organizing work, as much as it is a political. So, can anybody just share a story about, did you get some messages around from parents growing up? What do you remember?
I'm not sure. We were talking, I'm from a little town, pretty diverse, but it was a little place called Oberlin, Ohio. So it's a very liberal arts town.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a lot of issues, quote unquote. But clearly I remember our mother always saying when we were around then, don't ask for nothing and don't expect nothing. And that, it's a strong message. She always said it, and it has taken me throughout my life. And so what it did for me, I think, is made me want to always rely on myself. So you always got to work hard to get, but it was always that.
Yeah.
So I struggle when I hear people say, well, they should give, they have to give.
Yeah.
I still, when I ask for nothing,
Yeah.
I don't expect nothing. Because if I can't get it, then I'm like, that's so bad. I don't know. That message has been very strong.
Sure.
Yeah.
And did any memories kick in while you were talking about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My mother worked at a nursing home, and so she took care of a lot of those rich white folks' parents. And they were very generous to her. And very often she would give it back.
Right.
Because it was that expectation. And sometimes we're like, oh, wait. We could probably use that.
Yeah.
And so
Your
that,
mom,
as a young kid,
I do believe, yes.
it's very hard to understand. And then, as I was sharing, we're from a family of 7. There were 7 of us. And she didn't take welfare. She worked 3 jobs. And we were like, wait, you can't, I see my friends over there, they got some new shoes. And we had to wait our turn.
Yeah.
3 of us playing sports. Females, we always got slack.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, he's playing football. No, he's playing rugby. But,
Right.
we didn't get any shoes. So it's just those kinds of things.
So there were memories coming up while you were talking.
Right.
And did you see images in your head as well? Or
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I can vividly remember some of the conversation.
yes.
But we didn't question.
Right.
We questioned inside. But we didn't question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's both, could be a both and quality, both protective, but also feeling a little slighted.
Yes.
So what would the feeling be if you said both slighted and protected on a scale of 1 to 10? How intense would you say that feeling was?
The sliding was very strong.
Okay. Give it a number.
Oh, God, I'd say 8.
8. All right.
yeah, no question.
And if we just stay with slighted, did you feel it anywhere in your body?
Yeah, I think the flush, you said that about flush in the face?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because it still brings up that, as I say, thing in my neck.
Neck, yes.
That aggravates.
And is it your whole neck or a certain side of the neck?
Nope, right,
Yes.
still right here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
Mhm.
And were you saying anything to yourself while you were thinking about the slightest and feeling it in the neck?
And this was the thing that I think that we were talking about that is interesting. In the day, when our parents did those things, there was always the balance of love,
Right.
for me.
Yes.
And so, even though I would get angry, the thought of expressing that anger
Yeah.
would not have occurred, A, because, we didn't do those things back in the day.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
B, there were so many other memories and instances of pure love
Right.
and support that it was like, you want to just say, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry. You want to say, dang,
Yeah.
but it was that own personal battle that was going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think in the way that you've also described it, and I know this brother here has done so much work around storytelling. Part of story is reconnecting our emotional selves to the past. How many of you all have memories that were flooding in your head or images? Many of you think of things. And did you feel like at any place you were like right back in that spot where in some respects? Well, some might even define that as trauma. It could be positive, it doesn't have to be negative, but the idea is maybe there's some stuff that I'm still dealing with now that happened back then. If somebody could take me back there in less than 2 minutes, how do I unearth that in a way that can be part of my current story in the process? So I appreciate it. Can we give her a round of applause for sharing a lot? Now, part of the idea, and I don't know how much time we had, we're going to wrap up. Okay. Part of it is, how do you use your own story in the process of talking about your community and village? And in January, I'm going to be head of a national office called Forward Promise, where we're going to be looking for programs that are, so we can help support communities engaging in programs that actually try to appreciate the role of historical trauma and healing in their work. So bringing back culturally relevant practices, defining what trauma is for our neighborhoods, looking at national cultural history, but also what's local history. We got local history. The picture that you showed, Brother Thartis, around the boy club, that's amazing imagery that brings back so much about who we are just in this neighborhood, let alone what happened to us across time. And so we're actually going to try to take a different tack than a lot of westernized models have done around, if we were going to create healing and trauma support for our boys and young men of color, that's what Forward Promise is going to be about. How will we help support community agencies trying and villages trying to rebuild in the process? And I think there's community rebuilding, but there's also personal, so that we don't want to forget any of those things. So the soldiers who are working on the front lines need trauma and support and healing as much as the children who they are serving. We take care of the parents so the parents can take care of the kids, right? And a lot of the models are working. We go to barbershops because that's where men are telling stories of incredibly intense personal stuff in less than 30 minutes. And they're getting feedback around that. We're trying to undergird barbers to get better at doing that for a reason. We go to basketball courts because that's where the emotions of kids are, their strengths and weaknesses. We can see them. And they use the same skills there, they use it on the corner, they use it in class. So I use that as just a platform for saying trauma healing can be thought of more broadly, and that we don't have to take away our cultural strengths and practices in order to address it. But it starts with us and its stories. So I'm going to stop there, but still leave it. The lion story will never be known as long as the hunters will tell it. So how do we do it? How do we get our young people to tell their story? How do we tell our own stories in that process? And that means the ugly as much as the splendid. So I appreciate you having me, and I wish you the best in your work for the 2 days that you're here. And thank you, Brother Clark, for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming.
From the report. So there is an unwillingness on the part of the African community to utilize the human resources available to us. There is also an unwillingness among African people to be utilized as a resource. Within our community, we have people that possess every possible skill that one could think of. The challenge here is to mobilize those who possess the skills, organize those who possess the skills, and then build an independent infrastructure in order to build upon and pass on those skills to the next generation. All of us know, all the people in the community who know how to do this thing or who know how to do that thing, and somehow we've been unable to organize those folks to actually execute what we need. So let's figure out how we do that. I'm thinking of a bunch of the things. So I'm thinking we already have school, which runs from September to June. And then there are a number of after-school programs that are available, but none of them seem to necessarily be culturally relevant, unless I just don't know. And then a plethora of summer programs. And the one that I think probably has the most both affordability and I guess need to it is the one at the Urban League, but still is lacking in a lot of these cultural pieces that we're talking about.
Think about what the brother spoke about earlier today, about the trauma pieces, about the things that are missing, the reason that we can't move our young people forward. You're right, when in the education world, we talk about cultural competencies, we talk about those kinds of things. What is it about a cultural experience that is missing so that our young people can survive, can move forward? And that's what I heard that brother say. We are missing looking at the roots so that we can grow the tree effectively. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of our programs that are around town. They want to say, hey, let's do this, let's do that, and we all do it. But we don't have the piece that encompasses like what Alchemy does, or that helps kids realize who they really are and their true value. And so that's the cultural piece I think that's missing for a lot of our kids. So it may include those principles of Kwanzaa, but it's that cultural piece that we can possibly add to programs that are already in existence. And I'll give you the other thing that as I was thinking, Akron Public Schools has an Akron After School program that was designed by a white female who knew nothing about working with African American children. Her intent was pure in that she wanted to provide opportunities. She got the funding to do it, and so they just started pulling things from here and there. How about basket weaving? How about this? How about that? But there was no continuity in the work. And we can help provide some continuity in the work. And that's why they have a challenge working with our kids, because they know nothing about them. They kill me thinking that because they pull something together that we should come.
So what also think I just heard, that we'll be able to provide through this type of initiative is some classroom management type thing. I heard that in there somewhere.
Sure.
But this whole cultural competency thing, in addition to stimulating our youth, will also equip our, youth caregivers to be able to manage the classroom better. And that's what our schools are lacking to a large degree, is this classroom management skills.
Okay.
Brother Andre, just to answer the sister's question, when she answered, when she asked, what does that mean? Maybe just for the sake of putting it on the table, just expound on the 7 principles and just how each one, now you don't have to do a whole dissertation, but just how the 7 principles, by naming them, just kind of how that can be, how those principles can be a framework.
Well, I don't know if that would answer her question as I understood it. But what I think I heard her asking was, you know, cultural competencies, that sounds like a buzzword. And so, buzzwords.
That's an education system buzzword that gets people to buy into it.
She's sitting right here, so let's ask her.
Well, what I'm getting at is because cultural competency, as we understand it, can mean different things in different institutions. I know what it means to the juvenile justice system and the criminal justice system, but in academia, it means trauma and those. So what I'm trying to get at is I think we all need to have a baseline understanding of exactly what we're talking about when we say the word cultural competency and start from there. Because if we don't have the same understanding of what it means, because to you it means, you know, what I'm hearing you say is, well, incorporating Kwanzaa, which is accurate, which is right. But that wouldn't necessarily translate to someone else coming from a different framework, you know, institution or what have you. So I just think we need to clearly define when we say incorporate cultural competency. What exactly does that look like where we all can agree that this is what it is? That's all I'm trying to.
I guess in response to that, Mike, because my thought process was this, is that, you know, whether it's school system, criminal justice, whatever, you've got a principle of unity. Okay, that's it. I mean, that spreads through everything. You've got, you know, one of the principles is self-determination, self-identification. Self-determination is sorely missing in a lot of these programs. And so when I think this whole conversation started around, you know, using the 7 principles of Kwanzaa as an underlying base for everything else, I guess that's why I brought up the idea just to make it clear, we needed to know what those 7 principles were so everybody could be on the same page as to how they can be incorporated.
I had a 2.4 GPA. You don't get a full academic scholarship to Mount Union College on a 2.4 GPA. They gave me an academic scholarship for athletic purposes. So I found myself in a classroom looking at the periodic table. Dr. Turnquist, I'll never forget it. Periodic table sitting right there in front of me. Name of gas. So I can't mess up on this one. It's a gas. I looked up there and saw a U. Bam. Unleaded. Not exaggerating on none of this. I couldn't make it up. We're in the church. This is true tale. I couldn't make this stuff up. Dean Turnquist started to laugh, as you did, and just said, Dr. Turnquist, and just said, Mr. Womack, you have jokes. Please name another gas. I look up there and saw a P. Boom. Premium. Everybody looking at me like, this man is in the wrong class. Maybe he on the affirmative action program. How did you even get to this college? Because I was unprepared. And not because I didn't have the opportunities at Booker. It's because I never took those opportunities seriously. And that was another reason I got involved in education, because I began to see how unprepared I was, not because the opportunities were not there, but because I didn't take advantage of the opportunities. Later on in that same class, they said, name a debilitating disease or illness that causes the body to malfunction. I said, I can't miss this one because my auntie got it, my uncle got it, my cousin got it, my Aunt Jerry got it. I raised my hand, I said, sugar. Dr. Turnquist looked at me once again, Mr. Womack, there is no disease or illness called sugar. I said, yes it is. My grandma Womack got sugar. My Uncle Tommy got sugar. My Uncle Danny got sugar. My Aunt Netta got sugar. Yeah, it is a disease called sugar. So I argued with this man once again, not because the education wasn't there for me, but I had taken advantage of the education. And I began to understand how important it was to have a strong vocabulary and how important it was to start reading. So I started to pick up books that were of interest to me. The first novel I ever read in my whole life was called Pimp by Iceberg Slim. I'm not making it up. It kept my attention. It talked about Howard Hill, talked about things that he had done, and as a result of it, it caught my interest. And so it was a novel, and I read it. But later on, we had a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ben Yohanan from the University of Cairo in Egypt, who came to Mount Union, and he asked 3 very pertinent questions. So I want to give you guys some solutions because this education has made a tremendous impact in my life. And I kind of made a promise. I can't say kind of made a promise to God. I said, if you get me up out of this situation I found myself in one day, I'm going to focus on these kids. I ain't focusing on these streets, because the situation made me realize, listen, you really ain't no gangster. And you ain't ready to die for what you're doing. And it really wasn't that important. And that little bit of money you talking about, man, come on, what you got this degree for if this is the way you act? But Dr. Ben came to Mount Union my freshman year when I was thinking about leaving. And Dr. Ben said some very profound things. I had a gentleman in my life named Bill Limley. When you talk about the Civil Rights Commission, he was one of the people that was one of the first black firefighters here. Mr. Gladman, Chapman, Bill Limley, all of those guys were part of those first black firefighters. And he was dating my mom. And he used to tell me, son, I'm not going to never tell you to work because I don't like to work, but you better get a job. I'm like, Pop's always drinking. I call him Pops because he helped raise me. My dad was in jail at this time. And he said, I'm never going to tell you to work, but you better get a job. I'm like, that's that small liquor bull talking. Because I'm like, how you get a job without work? You know, it don't make sense. I've never seen a work application. All I've seen is job applications. Get a job. All right. And Dr. Ben came in, and this is what Dr. Ben said. He said, if you listen to what I say today, it will change your life. What I tell you is the truth, but they do not want you to know. They pay me $10,000 to talk to you today. But look at this small venue. But what I say will change your life if you listen. I was like, I really can't understand this, man. But I know what 10 stacks sound like. He said 10 Right, okay. That's a job. That ain't working. This man's getting $10,000 to talk. Right. You know, and I stand back because I don't like having my back to people. And he was getting paid $10,000 to talk. And he asked 3 very important questions. He said, who invented the light bulb? I raised my hand. I said, I can't mess up too bad. I done messed up on sugar. I done messed up on these gases. You know, but eventually I understood uranium, potassium. I got it. I said, Thomas Edison. I can't mess up on that. He said, your arm. I said, this cat's from Egypt, I think. And your arm must mean you right. Because I know they're not going to pay this man $10,000 to talk to us. He don't know Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. The next thing he said was, who wrote the 3 Musketeers? I said, well, that's English literature. I think I should be good at that. Boom, Shakespeare. Your arm. I said, yeah, your arm must mean you right. Because he getting paid all this money, and this man cannot not know that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, and Shakespeare writes classic English literature. Then the last thing he said was, how did Moses know that he was wrong when he killed the slave driver? Did not your Moses bring down the 10 Commandments off Mount Sinai? I said, yeah, I thought he broke them up and stuff, but he was almost 80 or 90 then, so that's true. How did he know he was wrong? There must have been some laws already in place. And so Dr. Ben goes on to tell us that your light bulb invented by a black man by the name of Louis Latimer. He invented the carbon filament that make your light bulb work. Thomas Edison's invention did not last. It's not efficient. Latimer makes your light bulb work. He said, black man, you don't know that? I'm like, no, never heard of Louis Latimer before. I knew George Washington Carver and peanut. You know, I knew all the peanut. Like, how many things can you do with the peanut? But I didn't know an African American was an inventor and had made the carbon filament to make the light bulb work. So light bulbs started flashing in my head. Then he showed us a picture of a gentleman by the name of Alexander Dumas. And you know, I'm mostly preaching to the choir here because you guys are probably mostly familiar with this. But I wasn't. I could tell you anything about cutting this up, looking at how to make this way more, what you need to do, where the dope house is, what's on Euler, what's on Wildwood, what's on work. But in regards to my own history, I didn't know anything about it. I knew about Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, George Washington, Shakespeare, for that matter. Right. I knew all of these different people, but I didn't know anything about me. And then he says that in Egypt, there's the 42 principles of May. And the 42 principles of May contain all of your commandments. Now, I wasn't going to argue with him. First of all, I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and as a result of my grandmother being from Atlanta, my other grandmother being from Birmingham, they raised us in the church. So I'm not going to argue about Jesus, Moses, nothing like that, brother. You can argue with these professors if you want to. But if you say this is what take place, and none of these professors are saying anything about Union is a Methodist school. And we had to take classes in religion. And they didn't question anything that being said. So as a result of me hearing what Dr. Ben said, I said, this man is telling the truth. And I said, and none of my friends know this. And maybe if I can go back and tell my friends about the things that we've done and the contributions that we made, then we won't all think that we got to do about 4 things. Either we got to be able to play sports, we got to be able to entertain, you're going to talk to me about civil rights, or you're going to talk to me about slavery. It ain't nothing positive to me about civil rights and slavery. I looked at it like, I'm tired of looking at these guys with these dogs and these hoses on my people, and Dr. King keep on talking about turning the other cheek, and Malcolm X been assassinated, and Marcus Garvey got put to jail, and, you know, tell me something positive. And then I would look at slavery like, man, it's got to be something better to our history. I know we got to do more. And Dr. Ben was the person who turned me on to the contributions that Africans have made to the world. He introduced us to Alexander Pushkin and told me that Alexander Pushkin was a black author in Russia and one of the most noted authors in Russia. As a matter of fact, he's one of the best prominent. He showed me that he was black. And then he started talking to me that Alexander Dumas made millions of dollars writing plays and stories when we was enslaved here. So it made me start to look at the Sabo and found out that, you know, Frederick McKinley Jones invented the air conditioner, J.A. Standard invented the refrigerator, and I found out about Fannie Lou Hamer, and I found out about Dr. Shirley Jackson, and I started to read and find out about all the different things we've done, and that Egypt and Kemet and Kush were the first major civilizations, and not all this stuff about Rome and Greek, and I began to embrace it. And then I found out that I wanted to teach African American studies. I was enthusiastic. I called my grandfather in Chicago. Man, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to teach African American studies. So all the people know, my grandfather, in his wisdom, sat down and said, well, the first thing I want you to do, son, is I want you to look and see how many school systems teaching African American history. Because I don't want you to come up out of that college and can't get no job. I'm like, Grandpa, they got to have it because Dr. Ben is telling it to me. He getting $10,000 to talk. So, no internet at the time. I graduated in '87. We ain't had internet. So I started to look. I started to research. And then I asked the people of Mount Union, we got an African American Studies department here? Well, we didn't. And I found out there was no place that was teaching. I could have went to Central State or Wilberforce, but in regards to schools in Ohio, there was nobody who was teaching African American Studies. And I was like, wow. Now here we are at schools like Booker, no disrespect intended to my teachers there. I learned a lot about Greek mythology from Dr. Green, but I didn't know any of the things that we had done. And it became a monumental point in my life to the point where I sat down and said, you know what? I still want to be an educator. I may not teach African American studies because I got to have a job, but I'm going to become an elementary educator. So I majored in elementary education. And I had multiple job offers when I came out because how many black men do you see in an elementary school? And those are the type of things that were impressed on me in regards to why education is important. And I left teaching after 3 years. I was disappointed with the salary. I was disappointed with the lack of African Americans in the curriculum. And that's where I met this gentleman and a couple of other gentlemen because I went to the University of Akron and got my master's degree. A gentleman there told me, maybe what you want to do, young man, is become an administrator because therefore you'll be able to take care of your family and do different things. And with the salary that I was getting as a teacher, I still had 1 foot in the street and 1 foot in the school. 1 foot in the street, 1 foot in the school, because what I'm making every 2 weeks, I can make this on a weekend if I'm willing to make this ride. So I'm going to keep on making these rides because I can make this money and I like the lifestyle. You know, when you grow up in an urban area and everything else that goes on, it ain't so much about the money, it's the lifestyle. It's everything that's associated with it. And at that time I had what was called stinking thinking. And I give my buddy Carl Majors credit on that one, stinking thinking. First of all, everybody told me to get a good education, but I ain't really seen nobody get one and benefit from it. Everybody's talking to me how important it is to speak standard English and vocabulary, but where I go, if I sit down and talk about later on this afternoon, we're going to the residence of our constituents in order to find a way to generate more currency so that our revenue increases. Man, listen, we're going to go get this bread.
You're right.
Same conversation, so I don't understand the importance of this vocabulary, nor is it important to me because I still got this 1 foot in the street and this 1 foot in professional education. And had a situation occur to me at the Hog Heaven that was down there on Copy Road. Gentleman pulled a pistol to my head. I think he's going to shoot me, pull a clip. Lord, thank you. I'm done. You know, and it took a little bit of time because you figure that's just part of what we call it an occupational hazard. If this is what you do, you know this is what may happen. But I wasn't really to die, and I had kind of made a promise. I can't say kind of, Lord, you know I made a promise to you. I said, if you get me up out of this situation, I'm going to focus on educating kids, and that's all I'm going to do. And he's been blessing me ever since. I ain't never took a step back. So a lot of the stances that I've taken in regards to what Dr. Goggins talked about is not so much because I felt that way, I wanted to do, but it was something in my heart. It's like, I can't do it. So long story short, and enough about me, this education piece, and why I've been able to do, and thank you, Lord, for your blessings. Some of the things I hope that you guys are able to do in the community right now. Education is a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, we may not want to look at it like that, but it actually is. In every city, in every state you go to, education is required. From the ages of 6 to 16, if you do not send your kids to school or not fill out a home instruction application, which I sign off on now, then you will be incarcerated. You cannot send your kids to school. They come take your kids. It's required. So in almost every neighborhood, every community throughout the United States, whether it be rural, whether it be urban, whether it be suburban, whether it be suburban, urban, whatever it is, education is required. And the state is responsible for making sure that education takes place. So as a result of it, it has become a multi-billion-dollar business, and it had very few limitations and sanctions on it. We've been sending kids to school for years that didn't graduate, and with nobody worrying about it. And so now what has happened as a result of this law called No Child Left Behind, which is really the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was written, bless you, in 1965 by Lyndon B. Johnson in order to deal with the disparities that he saw. We never thought it would have the impact that it does now. You have what we call multi-million-dollar operations. And what happens is, if you notice, in Akron Public Schools, Cleveland Public Schools, Canton City Schools, Youngstown City Schools, Dayton City Schools, Lorraine City Schools, maybe a lot of the major urbans, what you see is decay. A lot of the schools that used to be in your neighborhood, I don't even live in Akron anymore, but I know what, I ride past schools like Rankin. When Mrs. Reed was there, it was boom. Everybody was going to Rankin. Everybody in their hood. Rankin closed down now. I go past and I see old Stewart. I'm like, what are they using that for? I ride down the street, I see Erie Island. What happened to the kids at Erie Island? But what happened as a result is not only that people left because of economic opportunities, but these schools were closed in many cases because they wouldn't make an academic progress. And if you don't make academic progress, then you have what's called school choice. And school choice means that I'm going to take a kid from a neighborhood school, and in many cases these schools were the hub of the neighborhood. You could go to Rankin on a Saturday and Miss Reed might have skates, so we could go skating in there. We have to walk down to Hawkins Skating Center, even though I love going to Hawkins. But I could just go to Saturday at Rankin and she had skates and we could skate. Or they may be having something for the church there out there on that playground because the church was a small church. But now Rankin got this huge playground, plus it got a cafeteria, and it has a library. And those schools in those black communities were almost like the community centers. You know, when you look at the Civil Rights Commission, they talk about Lane Field. They bring up Perkins Woods. They talk about areas that we're familiar with that we're not too far from. But what happened is through 2001 to about 2014, what you start to see happen in a lot of urban areas, they kept closing the school talking about choice. Well, we're going to send you to a much better performing school. Your kids will get a chance to go here, and then they will be educated with kids who making good grades on these scores. Remember, folks, I told you I went to college with a 2.4 GPA and didn't even know what a gas was. Praise God, hopefully the next 3 or 4 months I'll be doctored on that. It ain't never how you start, it's how you finish. Right. And our schools were able to provide us with foundations because even though I didn't get the GPA, it wasn't the teacher's fault. It's because I wasn't concerned about it. And so when you judge a kid by a score, especially as young as some of these kids are taking these tests, it really puts us in a bad situation. And all this time we thinking No Child Left Behind in public school choice, what you were really doing is deregulating public education. And it hit us harder than anybody else. And I'm not anti-charter because I've always wanted my own school. I still want my own school. But as an educational administrator in a suburban urban district, I began to see the financial impact. See, I never knew about the money. I knew about the sports, I knew about the neighborhood, I knew about education, but I didn't know the financial impact. And as I began to go to different neighborhoods and I had a chance to travel and speak in other parts of the country, I always get off and say, show me where Martin Luther King Drive is first.
Everywhere.
Right. And almost always leading to the project somewhere, or it's leading to a black community. So I want to say, well, let me go see the schools. And I want to go see the schools. And I don't care where I go, from Charlotte to Atlanta to Chicago. And I don't do a whole bunch of travel in Chicago like that no more. It's getting crazy over there. But I always want to see the schools. In almost every area I go, the black schools just shut down.
There is a place for culture and organizing meet, and to set that tone, we have Brother Mario Cooper.
Hi everybody, how y'all doing? I'm sitting outside the circle, I'm picking on you. So please come sit inside the circle. I know these people don't want to be citizens. Neither do I. So like Dr. Goggins said, and thank you, sir, for years of just being real. I don't know how else to say. There's some folks in here who got years of being real. And I just want to say I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that, you know, before I knew what was going on, while I was doing everything except the right thing, that y'all was doing the right thing. But I am from, I really want to start with some video. People like video. And I like videos. But I also want to just lift up what Dr. Goggins just said about what happened in that village he went to, and how there were systems of accountability. And even though there was a chief that invited him, it didn't matter that that person was supposedly the top of the village or in some way. Like there was still a lived practice of him having to go through what he had to go through and what he showed us on the video. And in my mind, when we think about organizing, we call that relational power. Because the chief can't just be like, oh, this guy's coming in and all of you better do whatever. No, there's a council that also has power in the system that vets even the chief's decisions. Right? And that they actually are, and the chief understands it. Because the chief is like, yeah, I mean, I made a decision, I met this guy, he's a good guy. But yeah, you need to meet my squad. You need to meet my crew. You need to talk to these guys, and so that we can get a better understanding, because all of us working together is always going to produce better results. Even though we say that, especially in Akron, I've been working here for a while, and I'm from here. I'm actually from Elizabeth Park. I was born in Akron General Hospital, and the first place that I went to was the project. And I ain't ashamed of that, because that's where I'm from, and that's where my whole family's from. And my uncles are from there, and my mother's from there, and my grandmother moved from Newport, Tennessee, and moved to there. And my father came from Alabama and met my mom there when he was at my auntie's house in Elizabeth Park. But now there is no Elizabeth Park. It's called Cascade Village now because it was so whatever. And to be honest, growing up there, I was born in '79. So growing up there when I was 6, it was 85. And you know, 6 years old is kind of like 6 and 7 are critical, even inside of African culture. 7 years old is a critical stage. Because something happens to you when you're 7, and you start like understanding stuff. There's a different level of understanding at 7 than 4. My son is 4 now. And he has cousins who are 7 and 11, and there's definitely like, even though he's a little advanced, if you met my son is a little advanced, right? Yeah, I mean, you know, he can't go, but he reads. He reads, you know what I'm saying? He's playing chess now, but he's still learning the horses. He always jumps in the wrong way, but he thinks it's chess. Whatever. But there's a distinct difference between him and his cousin, who's like 8. right? Like you start understanding stuff. And I remember being around 7 when I can remember people in my community first saying, it's going to be bad when Goodyear closes. I remember that. When Firestone Goodyear closes, it's going to be bad. It's not going to be good. And like, there was a lot of people having that conversation at like Kitty Pack card games and stuff my mom used to have. You know, like that was conversation. And then I remember my cousins who was playing with water guns and us like 2 years before that, because they was really like 14, 15 when I was 7. You know, they're almost 10, 16, almost 10 years older than me. From them playing with us and like messing around, playing basketball and stuff, to like driving cars. They were like 16, 14, driving cars through Elizabeth Park. And I remember being like, that's my cousin, you know what I'm saying? And he'd get out with the troop suit on, and he had them Adidas. He had 2 pagers on the shoelace. I mean, like, these was my cousins. These were my family members. And then these guys went to jail. And there was this whole conversation about keeping the community safe and having safe communities. And in order to have a safe community, you had to lock my cousin up. You had to like put my family members in jail, right? Like, because that's who they were. I had 2 uncles who were already in prison. And I had these cousins. I had another uncle that went to the service and he came back and like couldn't find a good job from the service and started selling drugs and went to jail. You know what I'm saying? So everybody started going to jail. That was the 90s. When the late 80s happened, y'all remember that? Some of y'all don't know. In the late 80s, there was a move inside the community that said, we got to lock these people up. Because we didn't have a self-governing thing. There was no council of elders. And if there was a council of elders, they had been moved aside because now the kids can make all kinds of money and take care of themselves without listening to the adults. And the adults who were working traditional jobs, and those jobs were shrinking. Then we get into the 90s, and you got like a whole nother, you know, like Bill Clinton was great, but at the same time, we're dealing with the results of some of those policies, right? Now, why am I talking about this? In the context of us thinking about culture. And like, I don't want this to be a conversation where like, I come and give you a lecture. We're not doing that. Most of y'all know me. We can have an open conversation. I would hope that at this point, that I'm looking at 90% of the people in this room, and you know me, and I know you, probably 99% of the people, right? That we can have an open conversation about these issues, because what actually happened in the 90s was there was a trust broken. There was trust broken, all kinds of ways. Your cousin might have stole your chain, or your son might have robbed your house, and everybody was smoking and selling crack. And the church was saying, keep them crackheads and dealers out of here. And the elders was sneaking and looking at the window, a part of their neighborhood block watch, calling the police on their neighbor's kid. Then there was like drive-bys and all kind of other stuff that was going on that made people unsafe. And sometimes that was somebody's cousin. I mean, I'm just talking about the trauma. We talking about trauma that our community has experienced. And there's a lot of unhealed trauma that has never even really been addressed. You know, and now when we looking at it now, we have more information about what it meant when those people were calling the police. We have more information now what it meant when the church was saying, he can't come in here because he's a dope dealer. And everybody knows it. Or you can come in here, but when you sit down, you know, you better break off some money. And even if you do that, everybody in the church is looking at you. You know, this is true. It's just true. But we haven't been able to forgive each other. We're living in the results of it because the guy that you called the police on had a 2-year-old. And then he went to jail for 10 years. And the 2-year-old grew up without a father, and whatever unstabilized homes may have been and foster cares that person might have had to go through, right? And now that kid got kids and hasn't been a part of a village ever. In the meantime, what's happening, from what I can gather, from my understanding of talking to people, what is happening at the time in active politics is certain people are being chosen as leaders of our communities. And really the community is not even aware of what happens with leadership or what leadership is. And I know this to be true because when I started walking and knocking on doors, when I came back home, because when I got 17, I left my house because, you know, I'm smarter than my mom. That was stupid. And then so I started, you know, at 17, you're just stupid, generally, you know. I was like, you're going to have to learn how to respect me. She was like, you can get out my house. And I was like, you kicking me out? She wasn't really kicking me out, but I was ready to go. And I thought that she needed to respect me in a different way when I didn't have a job. And I was eating all her food. But it's the stuff you know now, but then it's like you need to learn how to respect me. But it led me into like, I was living on Backville for a while and I was selling drugs and trying to be something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I paid my rent because that was the whole play, right? Like, I don't need to be here. I gotta go get some money, right? But I got in trouble. I actually made a bad decision, and that led me to the Marine Corps. It was actually one of the best decisions of my life, right? Because I got to go other places, and like, I learned this later from Garvey. And when Garvey was talking about how he was traveling around Jamaica and traveling around the country, he was like, everywhere I go, I see black people in the exact same condition as when I left home. And that was the same kind of interesting thing, is because when you go to the service, and I know you've been to the service, you run into all the other poor kids. That's what you do. Like, and now I look back and understand it's part of my development. But you run into all the other poor kids, and you're talking about where you from, and they talking about where they from, and you like, man, that's kind of similar. Unless they're from Chicago or something, which is just way. You're like, what? Like, two people got killed. You know, but generally it's the same situation. And so,
you don't bring your sabers.
I know. My black power screensaver. This is what I need for myself sometimes when I doze off. Just look like I'm going to go back to work. But, so yeah, I went to the service and I got to travel the world, whatever. And then I came home, and when I started knocking on doors, so I originally came home to Youngstown. I originally came home to Youngstown.
That's my homegirl's mom.
Oh, okay.
Erica's.
Word. Yeah, you got it right. Yes, so I was in Youngstown, and then I came, well, my mom passed, whatever, and I moved back home to raise my little brothers, and that's when I really started working in Akron. Because I had been organizing, but I organized in Tulsa, Oklahoma, then I was organizing in Youngstown, but I hadn't actually started knocking on doors in Akron until probably 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And talking to people, the one thing that I really became instilled and crystal clear about is people do not know what the system they live in is. And so what happens is we as people who are, I should also add that I graduated from Kent State University from the Department of Pan-African Studies, and I was under the tutelage of like Dr. Dorsey, Professor Okanta, Dr. Badajo. Like I had black people who have been thinking about these issues for a long time, teaching me about black culture. And I was there for 4 years. When I graduated, I thought that if I just go and take this information that I learned, that I'm studying, these books that I read, if I told people about George Jackson and Mariba Ani and how we live in post-traumatic slave syndrome and all these other real technical terms, right? Like if I told them about Hakeem Adabuti and I said, look, you got to read this book, then somehow that was going to translate into us creating village, being able to protect ourselves, and that people were going to move. We were going to cause a movement, and that's what I was going to do. And then when I started knocking doors in Tulsa, when I went to where Black Wall Street was, because I went to Acorn, they told me I could get a job, but the only place I could go was Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was like, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I was like, sweet, that's where Black Wall Street is. It got to be some remnants of like those people who built that thing twice. And for y'all who don't know what Black Wall Street was, it was the model for like basically Wall Street. It was black people who were circulating money inside their community. It is what we are constantly talking about when we say we want to build these businesses and sell these. Like they had done it. In like 1919, this was a thriving community. There's a memorial there for y'all who don't know. I've been there. Took my little brothers there. You know what I'm saying? Huh?
There's one living person.
From, you know, and what's interesting about Black Wall Street, when you go there, you don't know it's Black Wall Street. The only thing that is left that shows that this monumental community has been built are these little bronze things that they had to put into the cement. And when I was talking to the lady who owned the health store in the same area, black lady, she was like, the neighborhood organization had to put these in the cement because Tulsa, Oklahoma was trying to forget what happened at Black Wall Street. That's the truth. They said we had to put it in the cement so that everybody would be like, what is this in the cement? Hundreds of businesses in this little area. What's left of it is like the corner of Market and Exchange. That's all that's left. They built a bridge through it during urban renewal, which for y'all don't understand, like everywhere you see the Martin Luther King Highway, it seems to cut through old black economic centers. It's like a joke. It's like a joke. It's like a joke. It's like, ha ha ha, you want civil rights, but we're going to take out your economic base. You can get this policy done, and you're gonna get to go to school with people, but we're going to tear up your whole economic base. And then we're going to name them Martin Luther King Highway, Martin Luther King Drive. That's real. Okay? So, and so back to what was happening in Tulsa, I thought I could just tell people what was going on, and I quickly found out people don't care about what books you read. No one cares about the books you read. You know who cares about books you read? Other people who read books. I'm just telling you the truth. That's who cares. If we are people, and I know a lot of you people in here, a lot of us in this room are readers. I know y'all, not you. But he reads. And then he tells you because he's your husband. I mean, it's just true. I mean, I know y'all. We know each other. But when we read, we can't be reading a book just to say that we read a book. We got to be reading books to figure out how to apply what we know about the condition that we are understanding to help people out here who are traumatized understand the material conditions in which they live. What do I mean when I say that? One, people got to know where they are. I remember reading in the book somewhere that slaves didn't know where they were. And I never even thought about that, right? Like, no one ever really thinks about like, the actual condition of the slave, who has never read nor seen the map, doesn't know where they are. Somebody coming down and being like, hey, you know what, follow the boss, and the sun on those, and that's kind of generally where you go to stop these people from whooping you. And some people are like, cool, that's all I need. I was waiting for somebody to say that. I mean, for real. Like, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? But think about it, they had no idea where they were. They didn't know this was in the continent of America. They didn't know they was in Alabama. They didn't understand it because it's not like when you go to Alabama, you look up in the air and there's a line that's floating over the air that says Alabama. And when I was knocking on doors in Akron and asking people, who's the mayor? What ward do you live in? What Senate district is this? What congressional district do you live in? How does the money get split up in your community? Who makes decisions about what happens on your street? They don't know where they're at. They have no clue where they're at. They have no clue. Same to me when we think about slavery and freedom. When we think about how to get people who are oppressed out of that oppression, and essentially in the church, if we do what the first thing Jesus stood up and said that he was here to do, come to free the oppressed. Ain't that right, Pastor? I mean, Jesus' whole thing was like, I'm coming to free people. And what we like to do, because of the system we live in, we like to say, oh, that was spiritual freedom. That's about expanding. No, it's about getting people from being oppressed in the physical world today, right now. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. If you're a person of faith, if you're not concerning yourself, even I was reading in another scripture, and you probably know this better than me, and they were talking about the fast. What does it mean to fast? Even in the fast, it's saying you're supposed to be breaking chains and tying the people who used to be yoked together. It's not just about I ain't eating and I'm hungry. I mean, that's what we reduced it to. That's what we reduced it to. Don't eat. And don't tell nobody why you ain't eating. And you just walk around looking tired. I can't tell you I'm tired. But I'm so tired. I mean, I'm sad, right? But what I want to say is when people don't know where they're at, when they don't know where they are, things can happen. This does audio too, do the same?
No, I can get you.
You have audio. I won't. Oh, it's a Bluetooth?
It's Bluetooth.
Okay.
Well, I got a
Yeah. When people don't know where they're at. So there's a couple of divides that I've experienced here when I was talking about what happened as far as like people being put in leadership who weren't like sanctioned by the people, but that's allowed to happen because people don't know where they're at. They don't know where they're at politically. They don't understand the structures in which we live. And then you have other people who understand the structures and are so angry and upset with what's happening that they go way to the other side and just start living in the world that we wish we lived in. Like, I'm just gonna be all the way over here, and I'm just gonna live in this world the way I want to live in it. Which still doesn't work because everything around you is being subjected to the oppression of this structure. So there's the world that we live in, and then there's the world that we would like to see. But we will never get to the world that we would like to see if we don't deal with the material conditions of the world that we live in. Period. Period. And the material conditions that we have right now is miseducation. Because that's really, I know you know this. It's miseducation. People don't, not even miseducation, there's no education. There's just no education. You go and ask a senior in high school and actor right now, we can ask them, line up and ask them and be like, what ward do you live in? Who's your city council person? What ward do you live in? And I bet you 90% of them can't answer that question.
I don't know the zip code.
You say they don't know the zip code. They can't tell you how to send a letter to them. They like letters. But if you don't know where you're at, then things like this can happen. So, Paul Waywick, as it says, founding father of the conservative movement. And the reason why I want to go into this is because we don't know the system, we don't understand our enemies. We think that racism is our enemy. Racism is a problem. Racism can be thrown around. We have two presidential candidates calling each other racist. I'm just saying. You can't say whose fault it is that racism happened. You'll say white people. So then it's your fault. It's your fault. But the truth of the matter is, if we went back in your ancestry, your parents were probably peasants. Your great-great-grandparents were probably peasants. And they probably were closer to living like slaves than the master. And that's just the truth. We don't like to talk about that because it doesn't make the picture real clean and neat for us to be like, it's just white people. But there's a history of white people being oppressed by this system because this system does not care about poor white people. Go to the south side of Africa. Go check it out for yourself. Go to East Liverpool and check it out for yourself. You understand what I'm saying? East Liverpool got people dying from cancer, dropping like spots. Nobody's doing nothing, and they white. The coal miners just got screwed over by the coal factory. Nobody's doing nothing, and they're white. And what happens is because we're not clear about this stuff, because we're not clear about what power actually comes from, then we let all the things in the world distract us from what we actually need to be doing, which is actually building a broad, diverse base of people who understand what the problem is, understands how racism affects them, meaning you as a white person, because there's some sacrifices that you make as a white person because of racism. They're about to sacrifice the whole country to Donald Trump because they're white people. You can ask them, why are you supporting Donald Trump? Hillary's a liar. Either they're sexist or they're racist. And they're willing to oh yeah, we're gonna concede this to the dude who's connected to the white supremacists. He's doing the dance with the white supremacists and winking at the KKK. We down for it. We voting for him. And nobody can figure it out. It's funny because I listen to NPR and I listen to CNN and I listen to these things. I listen, you know, and they're like asking people these questions. They're just like, I don't know. I don't know why people are, why Ohio 5% going for Trump right now. Or maybe it's less now or whatever. They say they might have not been the right numbers. But yesterday, on Thursday, Donald Trump was winning Ohio by 3 to 5%. And they're like, well, we just can't understand it. And I'm like, they're racist and they're sexist. Just say it. It's okay. It's a problem you guys. And because we want to address it, we dealing with stuff. And so I say that because when people don't know where they're at, they don't understand who their enemies are. And Paul Weyrich is an enemy. Paul Weyrich was the dude who is the thought father of the conservative movement. This is the conservative movement in the United States today. And this comes in 1980. So this video I'm about to show you was a video that was taken in 1980. Now remember, I'm 1 year old now. Nixon has already called the drug war thing. It's already been claimed, but he's talking about reforms and different stuff. Even though now we know, because last February or January this year or something, it came out that Eshelman, I think his name is Eshelman or whatever, his aide came out and said, well, we couldn't just directly attack the hippies or kill the black people, so we had to come up with a way that we can attack them both at the same time. What are they both associated with? Drugs. So we started a drug war. We started a war on drugs in the States. So that happened in the 70s, actually. But in 1980, at this time, it's being actualized by Ronald Reagan. The plan is actually about to go live. Okay?
Another Reagan version.
This is it, 1980. 1980. Listen to what this person says at this religious right gathering in Dallas, Texas. This is the founder of the modern conservative movement. If I can find it.
Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down.
All right. Is that everything?
I didn't hear the last part.
He said, actually, our leverage in the campaign goes up as the voting population goes down. Right? Now, you think about what the conservatives have been doing over the last, particularly 10 years. We got voter ID laws. We got them like dropping people off the roads in Ohio. We got them saying if you got a felony, by the way, the 13th Amendment does not actually abolish slavery. The 13th Amendment just transforms slavery. Because it says there's no involuntary solitude in the country of the United States except if you are duly convicted of a crime. And then after this happens, you start seeing the black codes, Jim Crow laws, the criminalization of black communities. You see like convict leasing and chain gangs arise because what's actually happening, connected to what elections are, is the folks who, still to this day, the way elections work, because I'm trying to connect this to organizing. And I want y'all to understand why we do electoral organizing. And I know people get like real gushy and feel it, like they love this concept of like, F vote, I don't vote, I'm black, and it ain't gonna change nothing anyway. And people love that narrative. People do. It ain't gonna do nothing. I don't care, I ain't gonna try, I don't care. And even when we got Barack Obama, it didn't fix nothing. But we don't vote on the local level. We don't understand how voting affects city council in Akron, Ohio. We don't understand how it affects county council in Akron, Ohio, and how much money that actually is supposed to be going to our communities. But the conservative movement has convinced us that your vote doesn't count as a part of this strategy. This is a part of their strategy, to make you believe that there's nothing you can do except to take it, and that voting doesn't matter. But let's talk about voting for a minute, because the people who created the 13th Amendment were elected because of voters. They were the ones who got to make the policy change and the decision because people voted. And some of those folks were bought, because, you know, if you're in a community that doesn't vote, you better have the person who got the deepest pockets on your team, because you can win. I can just flood your community with flyers. I have people out here knocking on doors. I can pay people if I got enough money to go and vote. And in Akron, Ohio, it don't take about 13,000 votes to become the man. Out of 200,000 people, 13,000 people decide who make the policies in this community. Less than that decide what your kids get taught in school. But everybody complaining. People want black studies and culture inside of Africa and black schools in the city, but then they're the same people who talk about we don't vote. And the people who decide what the curriculum is in the schools get voted for to get to decide what the curriculum means. We say we don't want all these police. We say the police are a detriment and an occupying force inside our community, but the people who approve the budget for the police to function in the city get voted for. I'm going to tell you why we do voting, why we work on voter registration and do elections. Because it's strategic. It is one of the best tools that we have, especially on the local level, especially right here. And the thing that these guys are doing, let's think about who's up here. He said Jerry Falwell, Ronald Reagan, the Heritage Foundation, the American Legislative Exchange Council. This dude is part of creating all of these things. And he's basically saying, we don't want people to vote. We don't need people to vote. We want to control what happens in your community. We want to decide whether or not you can build an effective village. We want to know if we don't prosecute people who burn down Black Wall Street, or shoot our kids, or kill Rock on the middle of the street, or this 13-year-old in Columbus. We don't want people to vote, because then we got to be accountable to them. And all these people are getting off. People come in and buy the parts in neighborhoods, move people out to other places. And the whole time we sit here talking about the books we read and trying to see if somebody's real enough, because did you read the Harold Cruz Crisis of the Negro Intellectual? It's 628 pages. And if you ain't read that, then you ain't down. I'm just telling you. It could be any book. Put the book on y'all know the books. Y'all know them. All the classics. You got to read the Malcolm X book, and you better know Marcus Garvey, and you better know that Stolen Legacy. You better have read Samuel Langston Hughes. You better know Taste of Power. You better understand the Black Panther Party. You better know all these books and stuff that I've read while I was in school that actually didn't have nothing to do with this lady who got 5 kids and trying to feed her family. And they daddy's in jail because of the accept clause inside of the 13th Amendment. And we don't even talk about that as black culture people. We don't even talk about the actual policies that are deciding what happens to our lives. The actual policies. The reason why these police officers are not going to jail when they're killing preteens. We don't talk about that because it's too hard. It's too hard to have to go to somebody's door who ain't never read those books and be like, this is what's going on, man. This is what's going on. We need to understand where we're at so that we can make these real decisions. And meanwhile, people like this are making decisions. So here's 1981. Y'all know who Lee Atwater is? You ever heard of Lee Atwater? You ever raise your hand if you actually have heard of Lee Atwater? Do y'all know who he was?
Yeah, he was the political operative for Bush, the first Bush.
The first Bush? Ronald Reagan. He was the person who came up with the strategy for the conservative movement to take over politically. Why is this important to us? Why is it? Because Oliver North and Ronald Reagan got caught bringing drugs into our community. That's why it's important. and they was elected. Because my cousins went to jail because of that decision. Because jobs left this community because of those decisions. That's why it's important. Not because we read these books, not because we had these study sessions, and don't get me wrong, we should have those books and study sessions. I'm not knocking those. I'm just saying there's another piece that we are not participating in. And that's when the decisions are getting made to hurt our community. So I'm gonna play y'all, so everybody get on page who Lee Hot Water was. I wanna play this video. This is during the Ronald Reagan campaign. He was in the White House. This is an interview, and somebody is sneaking, recording this conversation. He don't know they're recording.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a status issue, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race. In other words, you start out, and now you're on quote.
Hold on. Did y'all hear what he said? He said, I'm gonna talk to you about how abstract we have to talk about this race thing. And now y'all don't quote me. This is what he's saying, don't quote me. But somebody recorded. Don't quote me now. Don't quote me because I'm about to tell you all the truth about what we have to. Check him out.
1954, I say, never knew. Don't quote me. You start out in 1954, I say, never knew. By 1968, you keep saying, well, that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you get so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things. You're talking about totally economic things.
Did y'all hear what he said? Because I know this is hard recording. I want to make sure. He said, you start in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger, nigger no more. So then you say what? Well, he was like, it hurts you in the race. You can't run on that because think about it. We had Martin Luther King came in. You know, there's a civil rights movement going on. You can't just get on stage and be nigger. We have to deal with these niggers. That's not what's going to get you elected no more. That's what he's saying. He's like, you can't say that anymore. So then what you start talking about is things like states' rights and forced busing. And you start talking about these tax issues, cutting taxes. Right? That's what he's saying. He's like, and then he's going to say, you start talking about all these economic issue things, and watch what he says the result is.
And all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. Because obviously sitting around saying, we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, is much more abstract than even the busing thing. And a hell of a lot more abstract than the difference. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back.
Did y'all hear this? The last thing he said was, so after he says, you can't say nigger no more because that hurts you. He says, so you start talking about states' rights and all these things. And then you start talking about cutting taxes and how cutting taxes is the way to some economic freedom. And he said that's a lot more abstract than the busing thing. Because if you remember in the 70s, right before this, there was a big busing fight. There was a big fight around busing, forced busing, integrating schools, trying to get people to talk and be across lines of racism and culture. And he's saying, look, we ain't going to talk about that. He said, talking about taxes is a lot more abstract, a lot more confusing than even the bus thing, and a hell of a lot more confusing and abstract than nigger, nigger, nigger. Now, what has been the drum line of the Republican Conservative Party for the last 30 years?
Since 1980.
Since 1980? What has it been?
Cutting taxes, trickle-down economic theory.
Cutting taxes, trickle-down economic theory. And what he's saying is no matter what, even if that's the case, at least race come in on the back burner. We're not going to talk about race at all. We're not going to talk about none of it. But he said earlier, yeah, blacks get hurt worse than whites. Blacks are going to get hurt worse than whites. But we can't say nigger no more. We gotta talk about taxes. We gotta talk about cutting taxes, saving money, and that's what we've been talking about. Through all of this stuff, we've been talking about through the drug war, through your kids not being able to graduate, through 9/11, through the Patriots having the Super Bowl, and we've been talking about cutting taxes the whole time. And don't nobody know what these people are talking about. Partially because they don't know where they're at. Like slaves, don't know where they're at. You are not going to be able to create a safe, stable community. It ain't about all the businesses you can build. Because Black Wall Street gave us an example of what happens if you got all the businesses you can build, but you don't have no protection policies.
Got burned to the ground.
Got burned to the ground. Twice. And it ain't just about, well, we want civil rights and the ability to vote because you can do all that and you can have all that. But in the midst of having the right to vote, one, you ain't using it, and two, the prison industry is exploding. Which we just talked about the 13th Amendment basically stating that we can't. So what happened in the 13th Amendment, just as a side note, what actually happened in the 13th Amendment is they took the ownership of people away from human beings. The people can't own people, is what it basically was saying. It didn't say slavery, the ownership of people was over. It was basically saying people can't own people. But you know who can't own people?
The state.
The state. State property is what it says on the back of the justice. State property. You can be owned by the state if you're duly convicted of a crime. And right now, how does this relate to us? You can go to Columbus on Monday morning, go down to Columbus, and you can meet all the hundreds of legislators who are trying to be tough on crime, who are trying to show their community that they're going to keep them safe. And the way that they do that is creating more laws that incarcerate people. That is what's happening in this country. That's what's happening in Akron, in Summit County, in Ohio. And if our movement around Black culture and African culture doesn't address that, we will become as neutralized as the church has. And I know some people are going to be upset when I say that. We're going to be as neutralized as the church. Because you're not dealing with people's material conditions. Thank God Pastor Kraft said, I'm going to put this joint on the corner of on South Street and Green. And we don't work with these people that don't nobody want to talk to, that used to be at that bus station, at the Greyhound bus station, and you be like, damn, I got to go to Alabama. I'm going to go through the back, drop me off right at the door. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Remember the bus station? You had to like go straight in that bus station, right? You be like, you don't know who is standing around. Pastor Kraft said, you know what, we're going to put this shirt right here. And we're going to work with those people.
Can I make a statement?
Sure you can.
I know you're on momentum here, but
I'm always on.
But you brought up a really, really good point about what's happening here. And there is some awakening, but we have more and more people being transplanted here. And we, as new arrivals, new citizens, are some of the most vulnerable and the first to be impacted before residents, but yet and still it's continuing, and we're getting more and more. And while our numbers in minority populations are growing, we're losing our power.
Yeah, but well, I think that's awesome because what we need to be doing is building a broad-based coalition. As people of African descent or the Pacific Islanders or whatever, like we need to be building a broad-based coalition. Poor white folks, folks who deal with poor white folks, Black folks who understand what's happening to us and understand we should be educating them. And then these people who are just coming in are going to be subject to the same criminalization that we've been. And in fact, they put them on North Hill. That's where I got in trouble to the Marine Corps. I know it. North Hill used to have $8,000 we would do it a month, dang man. That's real life. And that's where I got jammed up trying to be a drug dealer. But now that's where they got all the Pacific Islander people in. I don't know if that's geographic targeting or what, or where they need to put them there. You know what I'm saying? She's saying yes. But, you know, we do have to be able to build those coalitions. So one thing I want to end on, because my time is going to run out in a minute. The one thing I want to end on, because there's so much more I would love to talk about, but y'all going to have discussions in a minute. This 13th Amendment thing, and how it's manifested, right? Like the 13th Amendment, how did it get created? How did it get written in the way that it got written is actually the interesting question. Because if you read it, I'm just going to pull it up on my computer quickly. Hopefully. Okay. The 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment is written in a real particular way.
I have it.
You have it on? You have it? Right here? Oh. You know what? That's what I'm saying. Been down forever. Just like bam! You know what I'm saying? Been down like right here. Okay, so this is what it says. 13th Amendment says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's the 13th Amendment. That's what it says. We thought we ended slavery. But it clearly says right here inside of this United States Constitution book that she probably got from the White House. It says, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party have been duly convicted, basically saying that you can become a slave as long as you go through court to become one. Can't nobody just come and snatch you off because you got a 4th Amendment right against illegal search and seizure. But if you go to court and get duly convicted, you can be a slave. What does that mean? What is that? How have we seen it? So, and how was that created? Who do you think put the except in? Who do you think was like, oh, wait. Except something. Who do you think that was?
Slave owners.
Slave owners. Plantation owners. Who were the landowners. Who had a massive amount of money to put people inside of those positions. Because see, in these United States, to be a decider, you either got to get a bunch of votes, or you got to get a bunch of money so that you put billboards, signs, have people out advertising for you. They can go out and get that canvas for you. You got to have some money to do that.
Ratified December 6, 1865.
1865. Isn't that interesting that it's in 1865? Civil War going on.
Civil War just ended.
They know that slavery as an institution is about to end. Somebody's like, oh, this ain't gonna last. Britain already stopped slavery. There's an uprising happening. The North is about, this is about to end. This thing we got is about to end. What can we do to keep making this money? Since I elected you, since I paid for your campaign, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna put it some kind of way that I can get my money back. You're gonna give me my money back. And that's where the accept comes in. Because what you see after the accept, and you don't listen to me, go find this video or book called Slavery by Another Name. And there's parts of this, but they don't explain it quite like this. But you got to think about the power aspect of it. Somebody's like, you know what, I got all this money, and you about to get rid of all my slaves to slave. We were money. We were property. We were like your car. You gonna take all my cars? No, hold up. And so what you see after this is black color. This is what you see come after this. Why? Because the planter elites, the people who own the land, the ruling class in the South, was saying, when I get a chance to convict you of something, then I can put you on the parchment farm. Y'all see the movie Life?
Yeah.
Right? That's playing out. That's the movie Life. That's what it's showing you. It's showing you that somebody, and you can look at the convictions people was getting. Staying in group of 3, conviction. Oh, you showed up for a job interview? You're trespassing on my property. Conviction. You saw it in the newspaper. Oh, well, I see it in the newspaper. Looks like you're in the wrong place, boy. And then they used to have these small courts. Like it wasn't like a real court. It would be like a dude who was a notary. Who you got to go see this dude who's a notary. And he's like, he the brother of the dude on the plantation. Where all his slaves just got away. So you going to jail. Then you see like drug laws called vagrancy laws. It's illegal to be poor. All these laws get thrown. And then you go to Nixon, who's like, man, how can we deal with these people? We're going to create a drug war. We're going to make the things that they use illegal. And then Reagan comes in and like, we're going to put that in their community. Then we're going to duly convict all of them. And we're going to call it a drug war, and we're going to make them the bad people. And we're going to do it so well that in 2013, 13-year-olds, or 2016, 13-year-olds are being murdered by police. It is connected. It is connected. Because in order to get away with enslaving all these people, you have to criminalize them. You have to. You have to make them bad people. And what's happening is we did such a good job of that on TV, that all these police officers who watched all the stuff that allowed us to criminalize these massive amounts of people, when they're making a decision about a 13-year-old with a BB gun, they kill him because they're terrified. And if we're going to be a movement that brings African thought and center thought and Nguzu Saba into the work that we do, and we're not going to deal with policy, we're not going to deal with politics, we're not going to deal with who makes the decisions around safety, then we're not doing anything. You're not going to have a village. There's no village for you. How can you have a village without safety? And how can you have safety without policies that create safety? It does not matter what you read. What matters is that we can go out with what we know, what we have experienced, the things that are on our heart, the things that we know is true, and talk to people and recruit them into this movement. If you want to do that, get out from studying with your boots and feeling like elitist because you read something, or because you're African, or because you got on this jewelry and got that tattoo. And we say we African and you say you black and y'all crazy. Y'all call yourselves niggas and we black people and blah, 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 and all that crap. Get over it. Check your ego. And then go knock on somebody's door in the projects and try to have a conversation with them. That's what we need. If we're going to integrate culture and organizing, that's what we need. And I will be back. I'll be back. Probably by the morning. All right. Okay. Thanks, sir. Hope that's what you were about. Gave you something. Okay.